Rex Heuermann has not been convicted, yet every morning he opens his eyes inside a locked county jail, waiting for a verdict that could determine the rest of his life. He has been charged in connection with one of the most disturbing unsolved murder investigations in New York history, the Gilgo Beach case. But there is a truth that often gets lost beneath the headlines. Under the law, he is still presumed innocent. No jury has weighed the evidence. No judge has delivered a sentence. And despite that, his existence has already been reduced to concrete floors, steel doors, fluorescent lights, and the endless crawl of time. This story is not about proving guilt or innocence. It is about what happens when someone accused of unimaginable crimes is placed inside a system that does not move with emotion or urgency, where days repeat themselves and the future offers no answers. When authorities announced his arrest in the summer of 2023, the reaction was immediate and explosive. His photograph dominated screens. His name became inseparable from a case that had haunted Long Island for more than a decade. Yet while public attention shifted to the next story, Rex Heuermann remained exactly where he was, confined inside the Suffolk County Correctional Facility in Riverhead, New York. That is where he sits now, still waiting for a trial date that has yet to be set. Many people believe an arrest means resolution comes quickly. They imagine fast proceedings, dramatic testimony, and closure within months. Reality is far different. Serious criminal cases move slowly, deliberately, and often painfully. Months stretch into years, and during that time the accused must learn how to survive a life defined by restriction and uncertainty. This is the moment where assumptions fall apart. What does it truly mean to live inside a county jail day after day? Not as someone serving a sentence, but as someone suspended between freedom and conviction. To understand that experience, you have to step inside the hidden world of pretrial detention, where time itself becomes a quiet punishment already. Where structure replaces freedom and repetition replaces choice, the reality of pretrial detention begins to take shape. This is not a prison built for punishment in the traditional sense. Suffolk County Correctional Facility exists primarily as a holding space, designed to contain people who are awaiting trial or serving relatively short sentences. It is meant to be temporary, a place people pass through on the way to resolution. But for someone like Rex Heuermann, temporary has become undefined. He does not know when he will leave. He does not know under what conditions. That uncertainty settles into every part of daily life and becomes impossible to ignore. Each morning begins the same way, long before most of the outside world is awake. Metal doors unlock with sharp mechanical sounds that echo through concrete corridors. Voices of correctional staff bounce off the walls as counts are conducted and movement is controlled. Breakfast follows a rigid schedule determined entirely by security protocols. For inmates considered high risk or high profile, meals are often delivered directly to their cells, eliminating even limited interaction with others. Heuermann falls into that category. His name is known. His face is recognizable. His presence carries attention that the facility must manage carefully. Separation from the general population is not a benefit. It is a protective measurement to prevent conflict, retaliation, or disruption. Other inmates have seen the coverage. They have read the headlines. They have formed opinions long before any verdict exists. Allowing him into shared spaces would introduce unpredictable risks. As a result, isolation becomes the default condition. His cell is small and utilitarian, roughly 8 by 10 feet, constructed for containment rather than comfort. A narrow bed is fixed to the wall. A stainless steel toilet and sink sit exposed with no privacy. Storage is minimal. Personal items are restricted to what regulations allow. There are no windows that open outward, no fresh air, no visual connection to the outside world. The walls are painted in muted institutional colors chosen for durability, not warmth. Lighting is controlled externally and remains on for much of the day. Sleep is irregular and often shallow. Sound travels freely through the facility. Intercom announcements interrupt silence without warning. Doors slam. Footsteps echo. The low hum of fluorescent lights never fully disappears. For someone who once moved freely through public spaces, who navigated city streets, professional offices, and private homes, This environment represents a complete inversion of normal life. The loss is not only physical, it is psychological. Identity begins to erode when autonomy disappears. The ability to decide when to eat, where to go, or how to spend time is removed entirely. But the physical environment is only one layer of the experience. What defines pre-trial detention more than anything else is uncertainty. Heuermann has been charged with serious crimes, but no verdict exists. His defense team is preparing arguments, reviewing evidence, and constructing a strategy. Prosecutors are doing the same from the opposite side. Both are engaged in a legal process that moves deliberately and slowly. Evidence must be analyzed, forensic results reviewed, witnesses located and prepared, motions drafted and argued. Each step takes time. During that time, the defendant waits. Waiting in this context is not passive. It requires endurance. There is no calendar to mark down days until resolution. There is no confirmed date to anticipate. The future remains undefined. That absence of structure creates a constant mental strain. The mind searches for certainty and finds none. Days repeat with little variation.
Mille arrive.
Lights change. Counts occur. Meetings with attorneys are scheduled and then conclude, often leaving more questions than answers. Between those moments, time stretches. Weeks blur together. Progress feels invisible. The legal system advances incrementally, but from inside a cell, movement is difficult to perceive. Contact with the outside world exists, but it is limited and controlled. Meetings with legal counsel are among the most important interactions available. These conversations occur in supervised rooms designed for confidentiality but stripped of comfort. Documents are reviewed. Strategies discussed. Decisions are weighed carefully. Every choice carries long-term consequences. Outside of legal counsel, communication is restricted. Phone calls are monitored. Visits are brief and separated by barriers. Physical contact is prohibited. Letters are screened before delivery. Privacy becomes a concept rather than a reality. Emotional isolation builds alongside physical confinement. This weight is compounded by visibility. Heuermann is not anonymous. His case has received extensive media coverage. His name circulates far beyond the facility walls. Inside the jail, awareness of that attention persists. Information travels through conversations, comments, and indirect reminders. He knows public opinion exists and that it is often unforgiving. Unlike most defendants, anonymity is not an option. Whatever the outcome, his life will not return to what it was. That awareness adds pressure to an already fragile psychological state. The waiting continues, measured not in days but in endurance. Understanding why this waiting lasts so long requires looking beyond the cell and into the machinery of the legal system itself. Criminal cases of this magnitude are not designed to move quickly. Prosecutors carry the burden of proving guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, the highest standard in the legal system. Meeting that standard demands exhaustive preparation. Evidence must be collected, cataloged, analyzed, and presented in a way that can withstand intense scrutiny. Forensic material is examined by specialists. Digital records are traced, authenticated, and contextualized. Witnesses are interviewed repeatedly to ensure consistency and credibility. Every detail is evaluated not just for relevance, but for how it will hold up under cross-examination. This process cannot be rushed without risking failure. The defense is entitled to review every piece of evidence the prosecution intends to use. They may challenge how that evidence was obtained, how it was handled, and whether it should be admissible at all. Motions are filed to suppress evidence, to dismiss charges, or to limit testimony. Each motion requires hearings, arguments, and rulings. Courts operate on crowded schedules, balancing hundreds of cases simultaneously. Delays are not an exception. They are built into the system. In high-profile cases, that scrutiny intensifies. Every procedural decision is examined carefully because mistakes can lead to appeals or mistrials. The court must ensure fairness not only in outcome, but in process. While attorneys argue and judges rule, the defendant remains confined. For Heuermann, participation in his defense is limited by his environment. He reviews documents when they are brought to him. He discusses strategy during scheduled meetings. But much of the work happens beyond his reach. Long stretches pass without visible movement. This stagnation can be psychologically damaging. Studies consistently show that pre-trial detainees experience higher rates of anxiety and depression than both the general population and sentenced inmates. The uncertainty is a major factor. Sentenced prisoners know the length of their confinement. They can count down time. Pre-trial detainees cannot. They exist in a suspended state where the future is undefined. That ambiguity erodes emotional stability. Mental health services are available within jails, but resources are limited. Counselors and psychologists manage large caseloads. Appointments are brief. Medication access can be delayed by administrative hurdles. For many detainees, coping mechanisms become essential. Routine provides a fragile sense of control. Waking at the same time, eating when food arrives, exercising during allotted periods, reading materials when available, writing letters. These small actions help structure time that would otherwise feel endless. Reports indicate that Heuermann keeps a low profile within the facility. He complies with rules. He avoids confrontation. He focuses on his legal situation. This approach minimizes additional complications. Conflict inside a jail can lead to disciplinary action, further isolation, or restrictions that make an already difficult situation worse. Survival becomes strategic. Yet even disciplined restraint does not eliminate stress. Each day without a trial date reinforces uncertainty. Media coverage resurfaces periodically, reminding him that his case remains a public spectacle. Conversations with attorneys underscore the stakes involved. At night, when activity slows and lights dim, reflection becomes unavoidable. Thoughts return to the same unanswered questions. How long will this last? What will the jury decide? What remains of life beyond these walls? It is important to pause and acknowledge a fundamental principle. Heuermann has not been convicted. He has been accused. The allegations are severe, but they remain allegations until tested in court. Presumption of innocence is not a slogan. It is a legal foundation meant to protect against irreversible error. Public opinion often moves faster than the law. Headlines simplify complex realities. Images replace evidence. Assumptions harden into conclusions. The justice system is intentionally resistant to that momentum. It operates slowly because accuracy matters more than speed. Victims and their families deserve truth established through due process. That process requires patience, even when it is painful. Tension arises when public expectation collides with legal reality. Many view prolonged detention as a form of punishment. Others see it as a necessary safeguard. The truth exists in a complicated space between those perspectives. As proceedings continue, hearings will occur. Motions will be argued. Evidence will be evaluated. Eventually, a trial will begin. A jury will listen. Deliberation will follow. Until that moment arrives, Heuermann remains in suspension. His days are defined by repetition. His future remains unresolved. The life he once lived feels distant. The life ahead is uncertain. Pre-trial detention is not dramatic in the way television portrays it. There are no climactic moments. There is only time, stretching forward without clarity. The system advances quietly, incrementally, indifferent to individual discomfort. For those inside it, waiting becomes the defining experience. His story forces us to look beyond a single name and confront questions that reach far deeper than one case. What does justice look like when it moves at a pace measured in years instead of answers? What is the true cost of pre-trial detention when time itself becomes a burden carried in silence? Not only for the accused, but for a system that promises fairness while demanding patience. How do we reconcile the idea of due process with the reality that for some people, the waiting alone reshapes their lives in irreversible ways? This case matters because it places those questions directly in front of us, without offering easy conclusions. The legal system is built on principles meant to protect everyone, even those accused of the most disturbing crimes. Those principles are tested most severely when public emotion runs high and the desire for certainty overwhelms restraint. But the system does not move on emotion. It moves on evidence, procedure, and rules designed to prevent irreversible mistakes. That design requires time, and time in this context carries weight. Rex Heuermann's life is shaped by that weight. Each morning begins inside the same confined space. Each day follows the same controlled rhythm. Each night ends with the same unanswered uncertainty. There is no countdown, no clear milestone, only repetition. That is the reality of pre-trial detention. It is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. It is quiet, repetitive, and unrelenting. Inside a county jail in Suffolk County, that is the existence he continues to live. Day after day, week after week, waiting for a verdict that has not yet been scheduled. The case remains active. The trial has not begun. The evidence has not been tested in a courtroom. Until that moment arrives, the only option is waiting. The system will proceed on its own timeline. When it is ready, the courtroom doors will open. Testimony will be heard. A decision will be made. But that moment remains somewhere ahead, undefined and distant. Until then, the future remains uncertain. This story serves as a reminder that justice rarely arrives quickly. It reminds us that legal protections exist even when public opinion has already reached conclusions. And it reminds us that behind every headline and every accusation is a human being living through the consequences of delay. Rex Heuermann has not been convicted. He has not been sentenced. He has not yet stood before a jury. Yet he has already spent years confined, with no clear end in sight. The question left for us is not guilt or innocence. That belongs to the trial. The question is what it means to wait for justice when the process itself feels indistinguishable from punishment, and whether a system built on the presumption of innocence can fully reconcile that reality. What do you think? Does prolonged waiting undermine that principle? Or is it an unavoidable cost of ensuring justice is done?